In 180 AD, on the last night of his life, Marcus Aurelius refused to eat. His doctors begged him. His son was waiting to take the throne. The entire empire was holding its breath outside his chamber door, and he lay there completely at peace. Not because his life had been easy. He had buried 4 of his children. He had fought wars that lasted decades. He had spent 19 years sacrificing everything a human being can sacrifice for people who never fully understood what it cost him. But in those final hours, the people who were with him said they had never seen a man so completely free of regret, so completely still, so completely at peace with everything he had given and everything he had been through. They asked him how a man who had sacrificed that much could die that quietly. He smiled and told them he had finally learned something that took him most of his life to understand. Something about sacrifice and peace that almost nobody figures out until it is almost too late. That is exactly what this video is about. And if you have spent years giving everything to everyone around you, and peace still feels just out of reach, stay with this until the very end, because truth number 1 is the one that changes everything. Most people who have spent a lifetime sacrificing are waiting for the same thing without realizing it. They are waiting for the people they gave everything to finally acknowledge what it cost, for the situation to resolve itself, for life to get quiet enough that peace can finally find them. And that waiting, which feels completely reasonable from the inside, is the exact thing that keeps peace permanently just out of reach. Marcus Aurelius waited for most of his life too. That is what makes his story so important. He was not a man who found peace easily or early. He was a man who gave and gave and gave and spent decades searching for it in places it was never going to be. And what he finally understood in those last quiet hours was something so simple and so profound that he had written it to himself hundreds of times in his journal before it finally landed the way it needed to. These 7 truths are what he understood. And the most important one is at the very end. Truth number 7, the sacrifices you made were never wasted, even when it feels that way. There will be moments, and perhaps you are living in one right now, where the sacrifices you made feel as though they produced nothing lasting. The years you gave to a job that eventually let you go, the energy you poured into relationships that did not turn out the way you hoped, the dreams you set aside for responsibilities that felt more urgent at the time, and looking back at all of it can produce a specific kind of grief that has no clean name. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." Every sacrifice you made changed something in you, in the people around you, in the direction your life moved. That change may not look the way you imagined it would, but nothing you gave with genuine love and genuine intention was ever truly wasted. It became part of the foundation that the people you love are standing on right now, even if they have never said so and may never think to. Truth number 6, you are not responsible for the peace of everyone around you. This is the truth that most people who have spent a lifetime sacrificing find the hardest to accept, because the habit of absorbing other people's pain and trying to fix other people's problems runs so deep by a certain point in life that it no longer feels like a choice. It just feels like who you are. Epictetus spent years teaching one principle above all others, that there is a clear and permanent line between what belongs to you and what belongs to someone else. Your thoughts, your choices, your responses, these are yours. Other people's emotions, other people's decisions, other people's peace, these are theirs. And a life spent trying to carry what belongs to someone else is a life that never has enough room for what genuinely belongs to you. You can love people completely and still put down the weight of their storms. Those two things are not in conflict with each other. In fact, the version of you that has finally put down that weight is a far better and more genuinely present person for the people you love than the exhausted version that has been carrying everything for everyone. And this next truth is the one that is going to hurt a little, because someone should have told you this decades ago, and nobody did. Truth number 5. You are allowed to want things for yourself without guilt. Somewhere along the journey of sacrificing for others, many deeply good people absorb a quiet and completely false belief that wanting things for themselves is somehow selfish, that putting their own desires, their own rest, their own joy anywhere near the top of the list is a betrayal of the people who depend on them. Seneca wrote, "Vindica te tibi," which means reclaim yourself for yourself. He did not write it as a suggestion, he wrote it as an instruction, because he understood that a person who has completely abandoned their own desires in service of others does not become more generous over time. They become emptier, and an empty person has nothing left to give that is worth receiving. Wanting to travel somewhere you have always dreamed of visiting is not selfish. Wanting time to sit quietly and read without anyone needing something from you is not selfish. Wanting to pursue something that brings you genuine joy simply because it brings you joy is not selfish. It is what a human being who has already given enormously deserves without apology or justification. Truth number 4. Letting go is not the same as giving up. There are things in most people's lives, particularly those who have sacrificed deeply, that they are still holding on to long after the holding has stopped serving any purpose. Old resentments about how certain sacrifices were received or not received, grief about the way certain chapters closed, disappointment about the distance between who you hoped certain people would become and who they actually are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." Letting go is not pretending those things did not hurt. It is looking at them clearly, acknowledging exactly what they cost you, and then making the deliberate decision to stop paying interest on a debt that has already been settled. The people and situations you are still carrying in quiet anger or quiet grief are not being affected by the weight you are giving them. You are the only one feeling it, and you have carried it long enough. The next truth is the one that takes everything you suffered, everything you lost, and everything that cost you more than you ever expected, and turns it into something nobody can ever take away from you. Truth number 3. Everything you went through made you into someone remarkable. A person who has sacrificed deeply and loved generously and kept going through difficulty that would have stopped many others is not a person who simply survived their life. They are a person who was built by it into something that comfort alone could never have produced. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." You dared repeatedly over decades of your life, and that is not a small thing. You dared to keep loving people who were genuinely difficult to love. You dared to keep going through seasons where stopping would have been the most understandable thing in the world. You dared to sacrifice things that mattered deeply to you for the sake of things that mattered to others. And that accumulated daring was practiced quietly across years that most people never fully see or acknowledge. It has made you into a person of depth and substance and quiet strength. Most people spend their entire lives trying to develop that kind of character and never quite reach it. You may not see yourself that way from the inside, and that is the most common thing about people who have genuinely earned it. The ones who are truly remarkable are almost never the ones who know it. Truth number 2. The life you have left is still completely yours to shape. This is the one that the exhausted part of your mind will resist most strongly. Exhaustion has a way of convincing you that the best chapters are already written, that what remains is simply the winding down of a story that has already been told. Marcus Aurelius would disagree with that completely. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. Not the present weighed down by regret or anxiety, but the actual present, the days and months directly in front of you right now. They are as full of possibility as any moment you have ever lived through. The question is not whether good things can still happen in your life. The question is whether you are willing to stop treating the years ahead as an afterthought and start treating them as the main event. It is not too late to become someone who finally chooses themselves. It is not too late to build something that belongs entirely to you. The version of your life that puts you first, instead of last, has not passed you by. It is standing directly in front of you, waiting for you to stop walking past it. And this brings us to truth number 1. This is the exact reason the emperor kept writing the same heavy sentences to himself across years of private diaries. This is the deepest secret in this entire video. Truth number 1. Peace was never something you had to earn through sacrifice. It was always yours to choose. This is the ultimate truth that takes the longest time to understand. But when it finally lands in your brain, it produces a massive permanent earthquake. Most deeply good people carry a totally toxic subconscious belief. They secretly believe that peace is a prize they have to earn. They think it will eventually arrive as a magical reward for suffering and giving enough of themselves away. They actually believe that one random day the universe will look down at all their sacrifices and finally hand them a permission slip to rest and be free. The universe absolutely does not work that way. Nobody is coming to hand you a trophy. Marcus Aurelius gave more of his own blood and sweat to the world than almost any human being in recorded history. And he discovered this dark truth in his final days. Peace is absolutely not a shiny reward that gets delivered to your doorstep when you finally suffer enough. Peace is a violent internal decision. You make the decision on the inside completely regardless of whether the outside world ever claps for your sacrifices or not. Seneca wrote near the bitter end of his own life that true happiness is enjoying the present without any anxious dependence on the future. He did not mean a fake happiness that finally arrives when all your bills are paid and everyone is getting along. He meant a savage peace that you actively choose right now, today, in the middle of your messy, chaotic life. You choose it with the absolute certainty that you have already given enough. You have already bled enough. You have already carried enough weight to have fully earned the absolute right to finally put the heavy bags down. You absolutely do not need one single person to validate your sacrifice. You do not need one more stressful situation to perfectly resolve itself. You absolutely do not need a permission slip from a world that is never going to give it to you. You already have every single piece of armor you need to choose peace today. And that is exactly what the greatest emperor in history was writing to himself in those final muddy pages. He was not talking like a smart philosopher trying to impress history. He was just a tired, exhausted man finally giving his own soul the one single gift he had spent his entire life giving to everyone else. If that deep exhaustion lives inside you, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel to keep building your psychological armor every single week. Go down to the comments and share your actual scars. Tell us exactly what you sacrificed over the years and what heavy weight you are finally choosing to put down. Leaving your real experience down there will help another exhausted man realize he is absolutely not alone in the trenches.